Ihr wisst, ich bin Marvel-Fanboy Nummer 1. Das ist wahrscheinlich nicht Nummer 1, aber ich bin halt echt dicker Marvel-Fan. Also die Leute, die mich schon lange verfolgen, wissen, ich hatte sogar so einen riesen Iron Man Pappaufsteller bei mir im Zimmer stehen, ganz lange. Deswegen, als ihr mir geschrieben habt, dass jemand einen echten Spider-Man-Anzug gebaut hat, war ich natürlich direkt am Start. Wie in den Filmen, in den neueren, da ist es ja so, dass der Suit am Anfang eher so lasch runterhängt und dann drückt er drauf und dann zieht er sich perfekt in den Körper. Ich bin gespannt. Ich glaube, das ist derselbe Channel. Ja, das ist derselbe, der diesen krassen Yondu-Fall gebaut hat. Okay, let's fucking go. Richtiger Peter Parker. Das ist schon cool. Ich bin gespannt, wie er das gemacht hat.
So in my last video, I asked you guys what we should build next. Like Marzi said, to build a self-tightening Spider-Man suit. So about 5,500 likes later,
kann man mal vorschlagen. Wenn mir es jemand vorschlagen würde, würde ich sagen, wahrscheinlich baue ich einen Spider-Man Suit.
And that was 3 weeks ago. This project has been haunting my brain. I've put probably an unhealthy amount of time and thought into this one, so I really hope you guys like it. And also now we need more idea comments, because clearly if enough of you want it, I'll make it happen. Maybe Hawkeye's changeable bow and arrow tips.
Es ist auch so cool geschnitten bei ihm.
That one got a lot of likes too. Alright, so if we slow down the video, Peter's wearing a super baggy suit to start with.
Genau, genau. Die ist so mega locker und scheiße und dann zieht sich das so zusammen. Und zack. Und das will er quasi selber bauen. Krass.
When he hits his chest, the suit shrinks down to fit. But if we look closely, it looks like the material itself is actually shrinking. Like the shrinking isn't just coming from one place. It's like evenly spread all over, which is really cool, but it also makes it really difficult. Like that means we can't just have like one central point of shrinkage in the back. We need points of shrinkage from all over. So that's where my problem started. Actually, for the past 2 weeks, my phone background has just been the gif of Spider-Man suit moving.
That's dedication.
Just constantly looking at this thing, was trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. So an obvious solution that came to mind was some sort of like shoelace mechanism on the back of the suit. This allows us to shrink down a large area of fabric with just 2 control points, like the shoelaces. Just add a couple motors and pulleys and we should be good. So I ordered a bunch of Spider-Man suits and shirts and anything else that looked useful. But while we wait for that stuff to arrive, I thought it'd be good to practice this lacing technique on a t-shirt. I learned where to take off the material to shrink clothing. Like the shoulders are difficult to change, but the torso, pretty doable. So I sewed in some thread in the zigzag shoelace pattern, spaced out 2 inches on the back.
Ich bin gespannt, ob diese Schnüre-Ansatz funktioniert.
Threads, it shrinks. Honestly, not bad. You know, maybe one day all the shirts we make will shrink down with a push of a button. We can have like a one-size shirt fits all. That'd be pretty cool.
Erstmal die Muskeln pushen, Alter. Richtiges Pusher-Shirt.
The only issue is now we have a lot of wrinkles in the back. Got a lot of string hanging off the shirt too. That could definitely get tangled. So I thought one way to eliminate all these wrinkles and string is to roll the fabric. So I built a roller device with the motors on each end that would fit onto the shirt and roll up the fabric.
Ach, krass. Okay. Einfach mal so casual. Macht man mal. Aber ist gut, das ist auch nicht so kompliziert. Würde ich wahrscheinlich trotzdem hinbekommen.
Honestly, this kind of worked too, but we got this stiff tube hanging off the shirt that doesn't really like to bend that well, so I'm afraid if we like have it in a tight suit, definitely gonna cause some problems. Like honestly, I think I prefer the string and pulley method, but so far all we've done is the back. You know, we still gotta get the arms and legs, so I figured a good way to test this motor string design on the arms was by building that Back to the Future self-shrinking jacket.
This thing doesn't fit.
I feel like this is kind of like the 1980s
Das ist so der Vorgänger zu dem.
version of the Spider-Man suit. I would bet the Marvel team took some inspiration from this movie. But in this clip, you can see there's no CGI. It's clear that the only thing actually shrinking is the arms. Like, I mean, it almost looks like they attached ropes to his arms and had people behind him just pulling up to make the sleeves look like they went up. Oh wait, that's exactly what they did. Anyways, here's how to make it. First, order a replica jacket, then spend far too long in the mirror with the jacket. Get 2-gear DC motors, 3D model and print mounts and pulleys for the motors. Sew the motors into the jacket, attach strings from the sleeves to the motors, make a box to hold the batteries and the 2-way switch to reverse the polarity, wire everything up.
Ich bin jetzt schon ausgestiegen, wer auch? Wir werden sehen, ob es funktioniert. Ich habe jetzt schon keine Ahnung mehr, was er macht.
And boom, Marty McFly at your service. Motors right in here, attached down to the arms. Fancy little push button switch. Up, down. Check this out.
Feuereffekte 10 von 10. Ja, hat geklappt, wie im Film. Cool.
Alright, back to the Spidey suit. So I thought maybe to limit the chaos of the wrinkles and the string, we could have some sort of like top plate that would sit over the back of the suit and like all the fabric would slide behind it. Problem is, like, what are we gonna attach this to that's not just gonna shrink up with the suit? So I thought maybe if we use magnets to kind of stick this top plate over the back of the suit and then like braced it with some like fiberglass rods so it'd be a little bit flexible so it could move with your body but not like crumple up when the suit shrunk. I don't know if that's making sense. So I built a prototype with some wood and some magnets, but I ended up figuring out there's too much friction between the magnets and the fabric, so like when you try and pull fabric through the magnet, like the magnets just pop off. The magnets flying everywhere, and there's still a string and wrinkles, and now it's even more complicated. Let's see, what else did I think of? Oh yeah, zippers. Thought zippers might be able to help. Like if we motorize them, all we need is just a string to pull the zipper along the track.
True. Keine dumme Idee.
Might give a nice finish. But anyone who's ever used a zipper knows they like to get stuck a lot. Because we're trying to condense all this cloth and zip it up, I kept getting stuck on that extra cloth. So I thought then maybe we could use like the lace mechanism underneath the zipper so we'd like scrunch everything up and then zip it over the top. But then now it's down 2 steps, it's even more complicated. Like, you see why this is taking me so long. Deceptively.
Es ist auch krass, wie viel er so ausprobieren musste, bevor er das gefunden hat, was funktioniert. Das ist halt auch mal so eine Sache, die unterschätzt man mega, ne?
Project. The whole time I was doing it, I was
Aber
thinking,
smarter boy,
an easier way. Classic rule of thumb is always go with the simpler design because there's less stuff that's gonna break. All right, let's take it back to the drawing board and look at some simpler ideas that might work better. First up, vacuum sealing. You already know how this works. Just basically stick a vacuum in a giant sack and it sucks all the air out. Form fits to whatever's in.
Das ist halt auch irgendwie das, wie ich irgendwie dachte, dass es funktioniert. Aber wahrscheinlich macht er nicht das. Ich glaube, das ist zu gefährlich wegen der Haut.
Alright, let's get vacuum sealed. Tape me up.
Macht einfach trotzdem, Leute.
It was a history major. This is what I'm doing now.
Zum Müllsack.
This is before and hit it. Ready?
Aber das sieht so aus wie in dem Film, ein bisschen zumindest. Klar, es hat noch so ein paar abstehende Parts, aber prinzipiell. Und du brauchst halt so ein Kabel, was halt so die Luft raussaugt. Das ist halt so ein bisschen wack.
Alright, so this is actually much simpler. All we need is a tiny vacuum. That's probably pretty easy to build. But the main issue with this one is all the wrinkles. Because the suit
das meinte ich auch gerade.
Material itself isn't contracting. You get all these wrinkles. The only way to avoid these wrinkles is to inflate a stretchy suit like a balloon or something and then have it shrink down on its own to form fit over whatever was inside. Problem is, how would I get inside the balloon in the first place? Basically, we're screwed either way. So I started looking into materials that controllably change size. Like, it's pretty well known that most materials expand with heat. But if we look at the thermal expansion chart, most materials don't expand more than like 1% or so. Whereas ideally we would like a change of about a few 100% if we're gonna be able to shrink the suit enough. What we really need is a material that shrinks with heat or something. Like, so this is heat shrink.
Kabel Heat Shrinker, ja!
Use to insulate wires, just add heat and it shrinks down to fit what's inside.
Also diese Dinger, die du um ein Kabel drum hast, die, ja.
It'll shrink to a half or even a third of its original size. And this is what happens when you let a YouTuber shop online. Yeah, this is 2-inch low temperature heat shrink. The low temp part is important because just maybe I won't get 3rd-degree burns. So here's a test
Gar kein Bock, sich zu verbrennen.
Spidey sleeve I made, and I'm gonna have my associate hit me with a heat gun. And the safe word is what? Like, ow, ow, it's burning. How about that? How about that'll be the
Safe word, au, aua.
safe word?
I won't respond to that.
Es ist so krass, wie viel er ausprobiert. Ich finde das so cool, das auch zu sehen.
That's so weird. Does that hurt?
It
Definitely doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel great. It feels hot.
Ja, aber so richtig funktionieren tut es halt auch nicht, ne? Willst du jetzt über den ganzen Körper mit so einer Heatgun gehen oder was?
Nice. Well done.
All right.
Well done, sir. Look at that.
Did it hurt at all?
For the camera, no, but off camera. Yeah, it kind of hurt a lot. All right, so honestly, I bet this would work if you didn't have to spend an hour or so like shrinking your entire suit down.
Gar kein Bock drauf.
Ow, ow, ow.
Oh, that is warm.
Yeah, I know it's warm. Oh yeah, and it also doesn't re-expand. So it's like cool until Spider-Man has to go home and like cut himself out of the suit. Pull.
Nicht so praktisch.
Dude, that's actually crazy.
Ja, guck mal, einfach so ein Abdruck von seinem Arm, also so eine Mold.
All right, let me restate. We need a material that shrinks with heat, but also re-expands. So I did
Es wird nicht einfacher, ne?
a little bit more digging and came across what just might be the perfect solution to this problem we're having. All right, ready? Check this out. Artificial muscles from fishing line and sewing thread. This stuff was discovered in 2014 and could be used for exoskeletons and comfort adjusting
Jetzt wird's langsam richtig wild.
clothing. That is perfect. So here's how it works. Basically, the way nylon fishing line is made aligns the polymer chains in the fiber's direction, allowing the fibers to experience large reversible contractions, which can actually contract up to about 4%. Now this 4% doesn't seem like much, but if we twist the fishing line, along with some conductive thread in such a way that coils start to appear, we can increase this stroke or contraction length by up to 20 or 30% potentially. Best of all, this stuff is actually really thin too. It's just like thread. So it should blend in perfectly with the Spider-Man suit. So in theory, we can make the whole
Muss erst mal drauf kommen.
suit out of this stuff. Also, another benefit is this stuff is strong. Not only can it contract and stretch more than a human's muscle, it can also lift 100 times more weight than a human muscle the same size. So if you were to put like a bunch of these things together to form the size of like a human muscle, you'd be able to lift almost 1,500 pounds. So in theory, we could put a bunch of these fibers actually in the suit, and we could get super strength too. All right. But before we get ahead of ourselves, there's definitely some downsides. First, the efficiency of these muscles is not great. It's like 1% efficient compared to like the 20% I think our muscles are. So we need a massive power source to do anything like this. Also, when I was trying this out, I wasn't getting anywhere near the contractions the paper stated. Most of my attempts didn't work at all, and the ones that did, I was maybe able to get like 10% contraction, but that's nowhere near enough. So as badly as I want to use this stuff, I think we're gonna have to hold off until another project. However, your boy's got one last idea.
Jetzt bin ich gespannt, wie es denn am Ende funktioniert hat, weil der gefühlt alles schon ausprobiert.
In these artificial muscle papers, they're comparing it a lot to this stuff called nitinol. It's basically a memory metal. It's a nickel titanium alloy, and its molecules are aligned in such a way that it actually remembers the shape it was in and can return
Ja, kenne ich. Ich hatte mal so eine Büroklammer, die konntest du aufbiegen, und sobald du halt so Feuer dran gemacht hast, hat die sich wieder zurückgebogen. Damit habe ich mich mega verbrannt.
that shape when heated. It's used quite regularly in the medical field for like orthodontists or heart surgeons.
Es sieht mega weird aus, so.
Like they can make stents that'll actually like prop open arteries, which is pretty cool. All because of its amazing memory properties. So I'll leave links down below if you're interested in this stuff. You can check it out. So yeah, heart surgery is important, but you know what's also important? Self-shrinking Spidey suits. So I think this stuff could work. So I ordered up a bunch of it, and it's not cheap, by the way. So again, that like button right down there. So while we're waiting for the stuff to get here, let's complete our Spidey fit. Luckily, you know, this ain't my first Spider-Man project. I've been making web shooters since day one, from cheap, lighter web shooters to ones you can actually swing on. So I don't think we'll have any problem in this area. Oh, that reminds me, if you've been following me on
Geil, das habe ich noch nicht gesehen. Das gucke ich mir später mal an.
TikTok, I actually made a new version of web shooter that shoots a dart with a string attached to it and a magnet on the end. So you can like stick it onto metal stuff, and with the press of a button, it's got a little motor that reels everything in. Pretty fun and cool. Like, this is the type of projects we can make and definitely get to you guys pretty soon. Eventually, maybe even ones that we can swing off of. But first, again, we gotta start with the shirts.
So geile Idee, dass er es einfach verkaufen will, seine Erfindung.
So I built a little COVID web shooter too. Basically, it's snap activated, but hand
Finde ich schon sehr geil.
sanitizer in is the web fluid. So basically, every time you snap, it dispenses a little bit of hand sanitizer right on your hand. So I downloaded and 3D printed a Spider-Man mask. And this took about like a day to print.
So
and it came out
aufwendig.
terribly, which is a real bummer. But we might still be able to save it because all we really need is that front plate, which actually ended up coming out pretty well. We just need that so your nose doesn't stick out. Like, if you ever seen someone in a Spider-Man mask with a nose, it's weird. Like, he doesn't have a nose. So to make the eyes move, I cut out some dark plastic and lined the eyes with it. Then using some elastic, I rigged it up so when you pull the string, the eyes squint, just like in the movies. All right. So now I think we have all the parts
So
for the
geil.
Spidey shrink suit.
So, guck's
except we
mal
haven't
an.
finished the suit yet, so let's wrap that up. No pun intended. So I thought it'd be easier to make a small suit expand versus a large suit contract. So I got a suit and marked out areas to cut to make it baggy. Then using the other Spidey gear I got, I sewed in fabric that matched the suit pretty well. I mean, you can definitely tell it's a different suit if you look close up, but remember, this is the fabric that's gonna be hidden when the suit contracts, so I'm not too worried about it. Also, the Nitinol Springs finally arrived, so I first did some weight tests to see how much we could lift with them.
Ist der noch fertig in dem Video? Ja, oder?
Looks like each spring can lift about 1.5 pounds, so not bad at all. So obviously we can't use like water or blowtorch to heat them. So I think we should be able to heat it up with electricity if we dump enough current into it. So I tested it with my power supply and figured out that basically the more current we put into this thing, the faster it heats up. You know, surprise, surprise. So now we just need a battery that
Sieht so satisfying aus einfach.
can do that. So then I figured out all the points to attach the springs to get the best shrink. Cut all the springs to length. Then I ran some wire after each spring and sewed them all in place. And we put the activation button in the chest, and I'm using some really high discharge small LiPo batteries to get the best effect. And we spaced them all around the suit. This way we get a lot more equal spread of the electricity. Because like if we had one giant battery, all the current would probably go through like one of the springs. It'd get super hot, but the rest wouldn't shrink. So I think this way we'll get a better result.
Dude, you're smoking.
Jetzt bin ich gespannt.
Yeah.
Oh God. So in total we have 26 springs controlled by 13 batteries. It ended up being very complicated to do, but honestly less complicated than my other original plan. Just goes to show how complicated this project is.
Herr Peter Parker Moment in Real. Geil. Und noch sieht die echt wack aus, die Suit. Und das muss jetzt so ein cooler Moment sein, wenn es wirklich klappt. Für ihn auch, wie lange er daran gesessen hat. Von hinten sieht es ein bisschen wack aus, aber egal, sieht ja keiner. Das ist schon cool. Ich meine, klar, von hinten sieht es nicht so aus wie in dem Film, aber ey, geil. Von vorne? Geil as hell. Okay, die Soundeffekte sind halt so ein bisschen, ne? Machen die natürlich nicht in echt.
Good evening, Peter.
Hello? Hello?
Congratulations on completing the rigorous training protocol, gaining access to your suit's full capability.
Geil. Jetzt ist er langsam komplett funktionstüchtig wie Spider-Man-Suit. Schon cool, sowas einfach in echt zu haben, oder? Das kann jetzt auch nicht jeder von sich behaupten. Einfach mal ein bisschen flexen. Ich kann mich nur nicht erinnern, dass Spider-Man einen Flammenwerfer hat, aber gut, gegen Flammenwerfer hat niemand was, ist einfach cool.
So basically I've got switches in my chest that trigger the relays to heat up the springs, which causes them to contract. I can control each limb individually because areas like my back take longer to heat up than my arm, so it just gives us a little bit more control. So obviously it's not perfect, but I say it definitely looks decent for a first version. And I'd love to hear how you
Ich finde es einfach, also egal, dass es halt hinten ein bisschen shit aussieht, dass es einfach funktioniert, ist viel zu krass, oder?
guys would have gone about this. And in the future I might try and like flatten out these springs and get rid of some of the kinks, because this metal stuff you can actually like program it to memorize its shape, and that could definitely smooth out some of the rough edges. Oh, and also just being better at sewing would have helped too, I think.
Schon ein sehr, sehr beeindruckendes Video. Checkt aus J-Laser Video, ich finde den Namen immer noch übel geil. Stark, einfach stark.